Hey everyone, tonight we're diving headfirst into a world that doesn't play nice. No velvet cushions, no Wi-Fi, just raw, unrelenting history. Picture yourself not as a king or a philosopher, but as an ordinary soul dropped into the chaos of the Roman Empire, the windswept steppes of Parthia, or the sun-scorched valleys of ancient beekeepers. This isn't a fairy tale. It's a gritty, sweaty, sometimes bloody journey through time. You're not Julius Caesar. You're not draped in gold. You're just you, armed with nothing but your wits, facing a world of crumbling apartments, vengeful queens, and sacred bees. So, before we jump in, hit that like button if you're ready for the ride, and subscribe if you're hooked on these deep dives, but only if you're genuinely into it. Drop a comment below. Where are you watching from, and what time is it there? It's always wild to see our global crew come together. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft hum, grab a drink, and let's slip into the past. You hear shouts, the cluck of chickens, a baby wailing somewhere close. Welcome to history's toughest chapters. Let's go! Life in the Roman Empire. Surviving the urban grind. It's the 2nd century CE, and you've just woken up in a Roman insula, the ancient equivalent of a sketchy apartment block. Think of it as a teetering stack of bricks and bad decisions, held together by hope and questionable mortar. You're not in a grand villa with mosaics and slaves fanning you with peacock feathers. You're on the 4th floor of a creaking tenement, where the higher you go, the poorer you are, and the more likely the ceiling caves in because someone upstairs dropped a jug of olive oil. Your room is barely bigger than a modern closet, with damp stone walls that sweat in summer and turn to ice in winter. No windows, just a tiny hole in the wall letting in a mix of smog, street noise, and the occasional pigeon that thinks it's your roommate. Your bed is a straw mattress, lumpy and crawling with lice that throw all-night raves on your skin. The blanket, a scratchy wool rag, smells like wet dog and regret. No furniture, no decorations, just a clay cup, a threadbare tunic, and, if you're fancy, a wooden comb with half its teeth missing. Cooking. Not happening. Your insula has no kitchen, and starting a fire indoors is a one-way ticket to burning the whole block down. Fire codes? They're centuries away. Your possessions are minimal, but your problems are plentiful, starting with the chamber pot in the corner, silently judging you. It's your only toilet, and you'll need to haul it down rickety stairs to dump it in the street gutter, preferably without slipping and adding yourself to the city's morning mess. The walls are so thin you hear everything. Your neighbor praying to Juno, coughing up a lung, arguing with his wife, or worse, not arguing with her, if you know what I mean. The air is thick with smoke, mildew, and the ripe stench of unwashed bodies. Outside, street vendors hawk figs and fish scraps, their shouts mixing with the clatter of carts and a centurion yelling at some poor soul. You're not even out of bed, and you're already itchy, sweaty, and possibly inhaling lead dust from the city's plumbing. Welcome to Rome, where surviving the morning is a badge of honor and you're just another nobody trying not to anger a god or trip over a goat before lunch. You roll out of bed, straw sticking to your tunic, and face your first challenge, the bathroom. Spoiler alert, there's no bathroom. Your chamber pot's full, so you grab it, pray it doesn't slosh, and head for the latrina, Rome's public restroom. Calling it a restroom is generous. It's more like a communal squat fest where privacy went to die. You find a stone bench with holes cut into it, a shallow trough of water running beneath to whisk away the evidence. You sit, avoiding eye contact with the guy next to you who's loudly discussing grain prices. Across from you, another man chews olives, staring like he's sizing you up for a chariot race. Doors? Nope. Curtains? Dream on. The latrina is a social hub. Business deals, gossip, and sciatica complaints all happen mid-squat. Then comes the tersorium, the communal sponge on a stick, soaked in a bucket of vinegar or salt water. In theory, you rinse it first. In practice, it's seen more action than a gladiator's sword. You wipe, grimace, and hope the vinegar's doing its job. If you're smart, you brought your own rag. If you're rich, maybe some moss. Most just use the sponge and carry the shame like a badge. Skipping the latrina for an alley isn't an option. Public urination laws are strict, and Roman cops don't mess around. You rinse your hands in a communal basin that's dirtier than your sandals and leave feeling lighter but spiritually bruised. Breakfast is next, but don't get excited. The Roman ientaculum is less a meal and more a grudging nod to survival. You get stale panis rusticus, a chewy brick of bread so gritty it could double as a weapon, paired with watered-down wine that tastes like ambition gone sour. No coffee. Rome doesn't know it exists. No eggs, no bacon, just bread and maybe a smear of garum, the fermented fish sauce that smells like a shipwreck. If you're lucky, you snag an olive or a chunk of hard cheese. You eat standing in the street, elbowed by passers-by, or crouched by a fountain with other bleary-eyed tenants gnawing their bread like it's a personal insult. Vendors tempt you with chickpea fritters or honeyed pastries, but your coin pouch is emptier than a senator's promises, so you choke down your bread and move on. Time to work. Unless you're a poet with a rich patron or a senator napping through meetings, you're laboring hard. You might be a bricklayer, porter, street cleaner, or, if fate hates you, a sewer worker. Rome's roads, aqueducts, and temples don't build themselves, and you're the grunt hauling stones under a sun that doesn't care. Your tools are basic: a splintery shovel, a basket for bricks, maybe a rope that frays faster than your patience. No gloves, no helmets, just dust in your lungs and sandals that offer less support than a politician's oath. If you're late, your pay's docked, or worse, you're flogged. Slip up, and a falling beam could end your career and your spine. Craftsmen aren't much better off. Potters and sandal makers compete in oversaturated markets, undercutting each other to survive. Messengers dodge carts to deliver scrolls. Accountants scribble for bosses who forget their names, and teachers drill Latin into senators' kids who'd rather be at the races. Women work too, spinning wool, selling vegetables, or running stalls while raising kids and dodging childbirth's grim odds. Lunch is a maybe, depending on your boss's mood. You work until you drop because, in Rome, idleness is a death sentence. The streets are a nightmare. Rome's roads are engineering marvels, straight, paved, and drowning in filth. The center's an open sewer brimming with urine, wine, vomit, and garum spills. Step off the raised footpath and your sandals baptized in urban sludge. Wagons race by, no brakes, no mercy. Daytime bans on heavy carts mean they thunder through at night, rattling your insula like a drunk god's tantrum. Crowds shove you. Merchants, beggars, kids, thieves posing as helpful locals. The air's a stew of smoke, incense, and rotting fish. Dead dogs lie in alleys, sometimes covered with a rag, sometimes not. Public brawls, political parades, or a senator's trumpet-blaring procession can trap you for hours. Slip on a fig, offend a noble's pet monkey, or get clipped by a cart, and your day's over faster than a traitor's trial. Thirsty? Rome's aqueducts are legendary, piping fresh water from distant hills. But unless you're elite, you're fighting for a sip. Public fountains are your lifeline, where you fill jars, wash clothes, and dodge kids being dunked for hygiene. Want to bathe? Hit the thermae, public baths where everyone soaks in shared water. No soap, no chlorine, just bacteria and bravado. You sit in a tepid pool with strangers debating politics, one guy selling socks, another scraping his ears with a stick. The water's been through more bodies than a gladiator's blade, and the lead pipes don't help. Over time, they gift you anemia, gout, or a touch of madness. Wine safer, diluted and drunk by all, kids included. Water's a gamble. Wine's just a buzz with a side of dysentery. Pain is your constant shadow. Stub your toe? No ice, no Tylenol. Just grit your teeth until it heals or festers. Break a bone? Wrap it in a rag and pray. Splinters turn septic. Childbirth is a coin toss. Laborers lift bricks with hernias. Soldiers march with oozing sores. Surgery's a waking nightmare. Scalpel, no anesthesia, just a wooden block to bite. Toothache? A blacksmith with pliers is your dentist. The poor bleed out in gutters. The rich fetishize pain as stoic virtue. Cry over a broken arm and you're not just hurt, you're weak. Need a doctor? Good luck. Roman medicine is a wild mix of Greek theory, herbs, and hope. Your doc, maybe also your barber, believes in 4 humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, black bile. Sick? They're out of balance. Solution: bloodletting, cough, fever, heartbreak, open a vein. Surgery's done with scalpels and confidence, no antiseptics. Wounds are rinsed with wine, which helps but burns like Hades. Prescriptions range from honey to crushed beetles to specific types of dung. If that fails, sleep in a temple and pray to Asclepius. If you die, neighbors call it an omen, and your doctor shrugs. Dinner, or cena, is no comfort. No pizza, no pasta. Tomatoes and potatoes are centuries away. You get pulls, a porridge of spelt or lentils, tasting like gravel with a hint of despair. Meat's rare, often spoiled, preserved with salt or garam's fishy funk. Veggies, hard cheese, or a fig if you're lucky. The rich feast on flamingo or stuffed dormice. You're stuck with gritty mush. Wine's watered down. Drinking it straight is for barbarians. Dessert? Maybe dried fruit. Maybe nothing if it's a fast day for some god. You wipe your hands on a shared rag or your tunic, your breath reeking of garlic and defeat. Entertainment's where Rome shines and terrifies. The Colosseum's free, a state-sponsored bloodbath to keep you distracted. Gladiators clash. Animals maul prisoners, and emperors stage naval battles with real drowning. You cheer, packed between sweaty strangers, not sure why you're clapping. Prefer theater? Amphitheaters host Latin tragedies you barely follow or crude comedies about gods and sausages. The Circus Maximus offers chariot races, fast, fatal, and bet heavy. Crashes are the highlight. Guardrails don't exist. Street performers, fire breathers, acrobats, ranting philosophers add chaos. Rome's spectacles don't just entertain, they numb you to the grind. Justice? It's a myth for the poor. Citizens get trials, but they're theater. Wealthy accusers bribe witnesses, and a good sob might sway the crowd. Non-citizens face fists or branding. Slaves are property, disposable if they step out of line. Punishments are brutal. Thieves lose hands, liars get pierced tongues, traitors face creative deaths. Crucifixion's common, a slow public warning for rebels and robbers. The vigiles, Rome's cops and firefighters, are corrupt and overworked. Mugged? They shrug. Bribe them and they might mug someone for you. Laws serve power, not fairness. Religion isn't a refuge, it's a responsibility. Gods are everywhere. Cardia for door hinges, Cloacina for sewers, Robigo for mildew. Forget an offering at a shrine, and you risk bad luck or worse. Festivals crowd the calendar. Business halts, bulls are sacrificed, and the air smells of incense and stone. Attendance is driven by fear. A failed harvest or sudden illness means the gods are angry. Worshipping the emperor is compulsory. Burn incense, sing praises, or be accused of disloyalty. Foreign religions are often distrusted unless they come with soldiers or revenue. Religion isn't about belief. It's about rituals done properly, in public, and with a smile. Social status is a slippery climb. Senators and equestrians guard their fortunes. Ordinary citizens like you struggle to get by. Freedmen, slaves, and immigrants fall below. To move up, you need a patron, a powerful man who trades favors for loyalty. Each morning, you join the salutatio, praising his toga, asking for help or work. Say the wrong thing and you're outcast. Rumors are weapons, marriage a tactic. Ambition can be risky. Climb too fast and someone might take you down. Night offers no peace. Rome's dark streets are prime ground for crime. The city watch might be bribed or asleep. Fires are the greatest fear. Apartment blocks go up in flames easily, and one knocked-over lamp can destroy a whole street. The Great Fire of 64 CE wasn't an isolated event. It's a nightly worry. Noise is constant. Late-night feasts, religious processions, yelling neighbors. Rest is rare, safety even rarer. You clutch your tunic, whisper a prayer to Mercury, and hope to see another sunrise. You've made it through one day. Crowded toilets, dodging chariots, violent games, contaminated water, primitive medicine, and meals flavored with fermented fish sauce. You're filthy, exhausted, maybe sick, and haunted by a shared sponge. Could you handle another? Most modern people would fold before noon, longing for showers and coffee. Yet the Romans endured. They built aqueducts, roads, and laws that outlasted their empire. Their concrete still stands. Their language seeded many others. They weren't perfect. They were determined, battle-hardened, and unrelenting. You don't have to survive ancient Rome. Just respect the everyday people who built it, one tough step at a time. Rhodogun, the warrior princess of Parthia. In the 2nd century BCE, Parthia's empire stretched across deserts and mountains, a fragile web held together by strength and uneasy alliances. Into this world came Rhodogun, a princess raised not in silk but among horses and swords, trained amid a family that dealt with revolts more than royal dinners. Her father, Mithridates Askew, transformed Parthia into a rival of Rome, but no empire expands without conflict. Uprisings broke out, allies turned hostile, and borders remained under constant threat. Rhodogun was forged in this world, not a figurehead, but a strategist, as familiar with armor as she was with politics. Parthian women weren't sidelined. Some led cities or married for diplomacy. Rhodogun, however, led armies. Her name carried weight, not for beauty but for resolve. When rebellions surged in the western provinces, perhaps Media or Babylonia, the rebels seized cities and dared the crown to act. Instead of sending a general, Rhodogun took command. She made a vow that became legend. She wouldn't bathe, comb, or tend her hair until the rebellion was crushed. It wasn't vanity, it was a calculated move. Her unkempt, dust-covered hair became a symbol of determination. She didn't ride in ceremonial splendor but on horseback, in armor, leading cavalry through brutal campaigns. Using classic Parthian tactics, false retreats, quick strikes, and guerrilla warfare, she led her troops through a grueling fight. Her soldiers followed not a princess, but a leader who shared their hardships. Her growing hair became a symbol of ongoing resistance and unity. Opponents mocked her as a witch queen, disturbed by a noblewoman who refused to retreat. By the 3rd month, her hair was wild, her legend growing. She starved out the final stronghold, cut off supplies, and exploited an opening when a gate was left exposed. At sunrise, Rhodogun stood victorious on the city walls, her vow fulfilled. Her return to cleanliness was public and profound. In front of her battle-worn troops, she washed her hair, a ritual charged with meaning. Every comb stroke represented victory, each rinse a rebellion overcome. No crown was necessary. The dust in her hair told the story. She didn't rush back to glory. Instead, she toured her reclaimed cities, rewarded allies, and enforced order. Her popularity unsettled the court. Some suggested marriage, others exile. Rhodogun didn't chase titles. She had already won. Her silence spoke louder than court speeches. She proved Parthia's strength came not from gold, but grit. History nearly forgot her. Male scribes favored kings. No grand tomb bears her name. Yet in village stories and soldier tales, her legend lived on. Rodogun didn't need monuments. Her memory endured in dust and defiance, a warrior whose legacy refused to fade. The steppes' vengeful queen asterisk. In the 6th century BCE, the Masagetai roamed the Central Asian steppes, fierce nomads who lived by the horse, the bow, and the wind. Tomyris, their queen, was no delicate ruler. She was a warrior forged in a world where girls rode before they walked, shot arrows before they spoke. Her people worshipped the sun, buried their dead with weapons, and met enemies with volleys, not prayers. When her husband died, Tomyris didn't inherit power. She seized it, commanding an army and speaking as an equal to kings. To the south, Cyrus the Great, founder of the Achaemenid Empire, eyed the Masagetai's lands. He'd conquered Lydia and Babylon, but the steppes were a new challenge. The Masagetai had no cities to siege, just pride and mobility. Cyrus, ever cunning, proposed marriage to Tomyris, a diplomatic trap to absorb her tribe. She saw through it and refused. Furious, Cyrus crossed the Araxes River, building a boat bridge to invade. Tomyris warned him, turn back or regret it. He didn't listen. She lured his army deep into her territory, abandoning a camp stocked with food and wine. A trap. Cyrus left General Harpagus in charge, and the Persians, drunk on unfamiliar wine, were slaughtered by Tomyris's night raid. Among the dead was her son, Spargopus's, possibly captured and killed himself in shame. Her grief turned to rage. She vowed to Cyrus, "I'll give you your fill of blood." The final battle was a storm. Tomyris led her cavalry, painted in ash, firing arrows and swinging axes. The Persians, expecting disorganized nomads, faced a disciplined fury. Cyrus's lines broke. He fell, either in combat or executed later. Herodotus claims Tomyris severed his head, plunging it into a wineskin of blood, snarling, "Drink your fill." Myth or truth, the message was clear. She was unconquerable. The defeat shocked the Persian Empire. Cyrus's body was returned, but his legacy bore the stain. Tomyris vanished from records, riding back into the steppes. Her story, preserved by Herodotus, became a Greek morality tale, a barbarian queen humbling an empire. To the Masagetai, she was a mother avenger, her name carried in songs. Centuries later, Renaissance art painted her triumphant. Modern Central Asia hails her as a national hero. Tomyris didn't build monuments. She built a legend, a queen who rode with vengeance and left empires bleeding. Asterisk beekeeping, ancient art, divine craft asterisk. In ancient Egypt, beekeeping was no side hustle. It was a sacred industry, blessed by gods and etched into tomb walls by 2400 BCE. Egyptians used horizontal clay tube hives, stacked like terracotta pipes, moved along the Nile to chase blooming flowers. Beekeepers puffed smoke through clay pipes to calm bees, harvesting honey for food, medicine, and mummification. Honey, linked to Ra's tears, was offered in temples, used in 500-plus remedies, and traded as currency. Beeswax sealed cosmetics and embalming wraps. The hive was a divine machine, bees messengers of cosmic order. Mesopotamia treated bees with legal precision. Sumerian texts mention nins, bee gardens, and the Code of Hammurabi, 1754 BCE, set fines for bee-related damages. Honey and wax fueled offerings, medicine, and trade linked to Ninurta, god of agriculture. Mud brick or basket hives sat in shaded gardens, their production tracked like grain. The hive mirrored Mesopotamia's obsession with order, a tiny city-state buzzing with purpose. The Hittites of Anatolia saw bees as sacred purifiers. 14th century texts describe bees carrying away impurities in rituals, released alive to honor their role. Honey-anointed offerings, clay or woven hives tucked near temples. Beekeepers, likely priests, tied hives to seasonal blooms, recognizing swarm patterns. The hive was a spiritual conduit, its hum a divine vibration. Greeks revered bees as models of society. Aristotle studied their roles in Historia Animalium, mistaking the queen for a king. Movable terracotta hives with lids allowed sustainable harvests, calmed by clay smokers. Honey sweetened wine, healed wounds, and fed gods as ambrosia. Priestesses of Artemis and Demeter, called Melissae, bees, channeled divine will. The hive was a philosophical ideal, ordered, selfless, sacred. Romans scaled beekeeping to empire size. Varro and Columella's treatises detail hive designs, logs, cork, clay tubes, adapted to climates. Smoldering thyme soothed bees, iron knives sliced combs. Honey-flavored mulsum treated wounds and powered soldiers. Large villas ran apiaries with enslaved labor, ledgers tracking surplus for export. The hive was Rome's economy in miniature, disciplined and fruitful. Across cultures, bees were divine. Egypt tied them to Ra, Greece to Artemis, Mesopotamia to Ninurta. Honey healed. Egypt's Ebers papyrus lists it for infections, Hippocrates for fevers, Pliny for battle wounds. Beeswax sealed tablets, built candles, and preserved bodies. Tools evolved, clay hives, smokers, knives, but reverence stayed constant. Rituals honored bee spirits, ensuring harmony. Ancient beekeeping wasn't just science. It was a pact with nature, its legacy in our pollination, medicine, and myths, proving even tiny wings shape history.